1749. A vault in Frankfurt was sealed with 3 locks, one held by the Elector of Mainz, one by the Grand Master of the Bavarian Illuminati, one by a name the archivists still refuse to read aloud. Inside that vault was a codex bound in black leather, its pages edged in gilt gold, its text written in a cipher that combines High German Kabbalistic notation with Latin shorthand. Every historian who has seen it agrees on one thing. The manuscript predicts economic collapse, social fragmentation, and a relocation plan for 7 bloodlines. The official catalog describes it as a theological treatise on the 7 years of famine. The Codex itself never mentions theology. It mentions coordinates, resource stockpiles, and a countdown. The vault was opened in 1987. The Codex was photographed. The photographs were classified, then returned to the Bavarian State Archives with a note: do not reproduce. A single microfilm copy survived in the private collection of a Viennese initiate who died in 2003. Natural causes, the death certificate says. The film was auctioned to an anonymous buyer. The buyer's identity was redacted even from the auction house records. You are now looking at the first broken seal. The document exists. It has been seen. And it describes a 7-year economic darkening that, according to its own timeline, began in 2020. If you have read the news, watched the interest rates climb, felt the prices of basic goods shift without explanation, you already know the surface layer of this pattern. The Codex describes the inner layer, the mechanism beneath the surface, the decisions made in rooms without windows, the names of the families who will not be affected. Here is the official story first. Mainstream economists, the ones who appear on the financial news circuits, describe the current downturn as a natural correction, a cyclical adjustment, a soft landing. They point to inflation curves, supply chain disruptions, geopolitical tensions. They use words like transitory, resilient, structural adjustment. They never mention the word 7. They never mention the vault in Frankfurt. They never mention that the current date aligns precisely with a margin note in the Codex dated 1785, a note that reads, in the cipher's only clear line, when the gold price reaches 2,000, the first year begins. That was 2020. Gold closed at $2,070 per ounce in August of that year. Now here is the detail the researchers tried to bury. The Codex does not predict a natural scarcity. It describes a planned contraction, a deliberate reduction of monetary supply, coordinated across 3 central banks, executed in phases. The manuscript names the banks, one in Frankfurt, one in London, one in New York. It names the families that hold controlling shares in each. It names the date of the first phase, 2020, and it names the second phase, 2024. If you have ever watched a market crash and wondered why the recovery always seems to favor the same people, you have already sensed the pattern. The Codex states it plainly. The 7 years are not a tragedy, they are a transfer. You see it because you have watched the recovery concentrate upward. If you want to trace that upward flow to its source, subscribe to continue following the paper trail. In the comments, write transfer if you have observed this pattern in your own economic reality. Let us go deeper. The Codex contains maps, not political maps, resource maps, underground water tables, mineral deposits, arable land that will remain viable during the contraction. The manuscript marks 3 locations in red ink: a valley in the Austrian Alps, a stretch of land in the Brazilian highlands, and an island in the South Pacific. These are the relocation sites. The red ink is dated 1782, the same year as the Ingolstadt raid. The same year, the Bavarian State's archives recorded the seizure of 7 manuscripts of esoteric economic doctrine. 6 were burned, 1 survived. The surviving codex includes a list of supplies: grain, salt, preserved meat, medical equipment, printing presses, currency dyes, communication wires. It specifies how many people each site can support, 1,200 per location. It specifies the selection criteria: first, bloodline; second, technical expertise; third, loyalty to the council. You are now looking at the second broken seal. The Codex does not predict the collapse. It describes the infrastructure built to survive it. Here is the evidence that anchors this claim. Declassified MI5 files from 1946, released under the 30-year rule, then quietly reclassified in 2008, document the reconstruction of the Austrian Valley site after World War II. The file notes that the site was originally constructed in 1873, matching the architectural blueprints found in the Austrian Engineering Museum. The blueprints bear the same symbols as the Codex's margins. The site was expanded in 2004. The expansion was funded by a trust based in Liechtenstein. The trust's beneficiaries are sealed. If you have ever opened a declassified file and found the redactions thicker than the text, you know the shape of the wall they built. The Codex is the blueprint for that wall. Now let us examine the timeline the Codex establishes. The manuscript divides the 7 years into 3 phases. Phase 1, inflation, currency devaluation, public confusion. Phase 2, credit freeze, banking consolidation, asset seizure. Phase 3, relocation, population reduction, grid stabilization. The Codex says Phase 1 ends in 2024. Phase 2 ends in 2027. Phase 3 completes in 2027, exactly 7 years from 2020. The margin note in 1785 reads, "When the people no longer believe the currency, the council offers them a new one and controls both." That margin note is the fulcrum of the entire document. Subscribe to stay with the evidence as we map the council's full currency strategy. In the comments, drop the word handover if you see that a new money system is being prepared. This is the hidden truth. The Codex does not describe a disaster, it describes a handover. The insiders are not fleeing the collapse. They are building the world that follows it. Here's where the script stops for this pass. You have the opening, the official story, the first crack, the escalating contradictions, and the hidden truth. The next pass will complete the personal confrontation, the transformation path, and the closing, all within the word count target. Let us now confront what this means for you directly. The manuscript names a specific threshold, a price level for gold, a date for banking consolidation, a moment when the currency you hold in your hand becomes a different instrument entirely. The Codex does not ask you to believe. It simply states what will be observed. You have already observed Phase 1. The inflation, the currency volatility, the sense that the rules of the economic game have shifted beneath your feet. The Codex describes these as intended effects, not accidental consequences. If you have stared at your savings account and felt the purchasing power erode month by month, you have experienced exactly what the manuscript calibrates. The Codex calls this the softening, the period when ordinary people lose confidence in the system, not through a single crash, but through 1,000 small cuts. Each interest rate hike, each price increase, each notice that your insurance premium, your rent, your utility bill has risen beyond explanation. The Codex states that this stage lasts 3 years. You are living in year 4. Now consider the selection criteria the manuscript describes. 1,200 per site. 3 sites. The Codex names the bloodlines. 47 families, it says, though the text is damaged at that point and only 22 names remain legible. The names are drawn from the same genealogical registers that the Frankfurt Parish archives still hold. You can request those registers. They have been digitized. The names are there. Banking families, industrial dynasties, aristocratic lines that trace back to the Holy Roman Empire. The Codex says they will be protected. It does not say who else will be. The transformation path is not in the Codex. The Codex is a document, not a guide. It records what the council decided. It does not record how to resist. That is a different manuscript, one that exists, one that has been mentioned in obscure footnotes to the Bavarian State Archives catalog, one that the archivists say was destroyed in the 1945 bombing of Dresden. The catalog entry reads, in German, Codex of the Outer Path, Destruction Uncertain. The microfilm of that entry exists in a private collection in Vienna. You could request it. The request would be logged. The Codex names the sites. It names the bloodlines. It names the timeline. What it does not name is the point of no return, the moment when the grid shifts from the old system to the new one. The margin note in 1785 says, the council will know when that moment arrives. The people will learn afterward. That is the shape of the control system the manuscript describes. Decisions made in rooms without windows, affecting everyone outside them. The vault in Frankfurt still holds the original. It sits in a climate-controlled room on the 3rd floor of the Bavarian State Archives, catalog number MS 11785-47. The archivist will tell you the manuscript is too fragile to be handled. They will tell you it has been digitized. They will show you a microfilm, but the microfilm ends at page 43. The Codex has 94 pages. The remaining 51 were never photographed. The archivist who admitted this in 1998 was transferred within the month to a regional office in Passau. He died in 2001, car accident on an empty road. The photographs that were taken, the classified set, show page 17 in full. That page lists the 22 bloodlines, but it also contains a marginal annotation in a different hand, added later, written in ink, That spectroscopic analysis dated to 1889. The annotation lists 7 additional names. These names are not from the original 22. They are industrial families: steel, chemicals, shipping, oil, electricity, communications, railways. The annotation reads in abbreviated German, "The outer circle, admitted 1873. 1873 was the year of the Vienna stock market crash, the year the Austrian economy collapsed and the Rothschilds consolidated their holdings across Central Europe, the year the Valley site in the Austrian Alps was first constructed. You are now looking at the third broken seal. The Codex was not a static document. It was updated. New families were brought in. New resources were allocated. New locations were added. The system the manuscript describes is not a single event. It is a living infrastructure, maintained and expanded across generations, still operating while you read these words. Consider the resource maps more carefully. The Codex marks the Brazilian highland site with a symbol that appears nowhere else in the manuscript, a circle divided into 3 segments, each containing a smaller circle. The symbol is not Illuminati. It is not Masonic. It is a land surveying notation used by the Portuguese colonial cartographic service in the 18th century. The site it marks sits above the Guarani Aquifer, the 3rd largest freshwater reserve on the planet. The coordinates lead to a municipality called Formosa in the state of Goiás. Population today, approximately 120,000. The Codex says the site can support 1,200. Remember that number. It appears 3 times. 1,200 per site, 3 sites. The Codex does not say what happens to the remaining population. It does not need to. The word remains appears once in the margin of page 62, written in the cipher's only feminine hand, a hand that a graphologist from the University of Munich identified as belonging to a woman born in 1763, the daughter of a council member, whose name was systematically removed from every lodge record after her death in 1797. Her name was recorded only in the baptismal register of the Frankfurt Cathedral. She was 8 years old when the vault was sealed. She wrote in the margin, "The Codex is not a prediction, it is a receipt. A receipt documents what has already been transacted. Subscribe to see the rest of the receipts as we break the remaining seals." In the comments, write "receipt" if you accept what this document actually records. If you have ever read a document that tells you more about its author than its subject, you recognize the weight of that single line. A receipt records what was paid, what was taken, what was owed. The Codex is not looking forward. It is looking back from a future the writer already knew would come. Let us examine the second phase more closely. The manuscript states that when the credit freeze begins, 3 specific banks will be allowed to fail. Banks outside the 7-year plan. Banks that serve ordinary depositors. Banks whose collapse will trigger the consolidation phase. The Codex names them. It identifies their reserve ratios, their exposure to sovereign debt, their dates of incorporation. All 3 were chartered between 1850 and 1870, the period of the Second Industrial Revolution, the period when the outer circle families were added to the annotation. The banks were created to absorb risk. They were created to fail when the signal was given. The signal, according to the Codex, is the closure of a specific gold vault in London. The vault holds the bullion reserves of the 3 central banks named earlier. When that vault is sealed, when the gold is moved, the first bank collapses within 72 hours. The Codex describes this as a cascade. One failure triggers the next. The public does not see the gold movement. They only see the bank closures. They are designed not to see the connection. The manuscript includes a single sentence in clear Latin on page 71. Non vident, quia non videre volunt. They do not see because they do not wish to see. The sentence is written in the same hand as the margin note about the receipt. The woman who wrote it was describing her own time. She was describing yours. Now consider the island site. The Codex marks it as a transshipment point, not a permanent settlement. The island is named in the Portuguese maritime charts of the period as Ilha do Diabo, Devil's Island, but it is not the French penal colony of the same name. This island lies at a different set of coordinates in the South Pacific, at a latitude that corresponds to the 40th parallel south. The Codex says the island has a natural harbor and a fresh water spring. It says the approach is hidden by a reef that does not appear on modern navigation charts. The reef was deliberately unmapped. The manuscript calls this the blind channel. If you search for the coordinates today, 22 degrees south, 170 degrees east, satellite imagery shows an island that appears on no maritime registry. The island has no landing strip, no port, no population. The Codex says it will. The Codex says construction began in 2001. The funding came from a trust based in Singapore. The trust's beneficiaries are protected by Singaporean banking secrecy laws. The trust's founder was a British citizen who died in 2019. His will was sealed by the High Court of London. The reason given: protection of ongoing commercial interests. You are looking at the fourth broken seal. The infrastructure is not theoretical. It is physical. It is funded. It is real. Let us return to the Codex's central mechanism, the wealth transfer. The manuscript describes a system that funnels value upward through three instruments: currency devaluation, asset seizure, and debt restructuring. Each instrument targets a different class. Currency devaluation targets savers. Asset seizure targets property owners. Debt restructuring targets the professional class. The Codex names the order: devaluation first, then seizure, then restructuring. It says this takes 6 years. The 7th year is the transfer year, the year the new currency is introduced, backed by the resources held in the 3 sites, managed by the 47 families, enforced by the council. The woman's margin note on page 62 continues. She wrote, "The people will accept the new money because the old money betrayed them. They will not ask who prints it. They will only be grateful." That is how the control system operates. Not through force, through exhaustion, through the slow erosion of alternatives until the only option left is the one the council prepared. The Codex does not describe a coup. It describes a surrender, one you will not even know you have made until the new currency is in your hand and the old one is worth less than the paper it was printed on. If you have watched a government announce a new digital currency trial, a central bank pilot, a new settlement system, a financial institution urge you to move your savings into a new infrastructure, you have watched the preparation for Phase 3. The Codex does not name the date of Phase 3. It names the condition. When the people no longer trust the paper, the council offers the digital. Both are controlled by the same hand. The hand is named in the genealogical registers, but the registers are in Frankfurt. The vault is in Frankfurt. The Codex is in Frankfurt. The link between the names and the plan is preserved in the same building, the same floor, the same room, the same shelf, and the catalog still describes it as a theological treatise. The catalog entry manuscript number MS178547 sits in a database accessible to any accredited researcher. You could request it today. The request form is online. It asks for your name, your institutional affiliation, your reason for access. The reason field has no character limit. You could write the truth, but the request would still be logged against your name. The archivists keep a record of every inquiry. They have since 1903. The logbooks are stored in the same vault, a separate shelf, catalog number MS1903-12, accessible under the same regulations. The logbooks are not theological treatises. They are lists of names, names of people who asked, names of people who saw the contradiction between the catalog description and the vault's actual contents, names of people who requested page 44 and were told the microfilm ended at 43, names of people who wrote their reason in the reason field. One of those names is the archivist who was transferred to Passau. Another is the British citizen whose will was sealed by the High Court of London. Another is the daughter of the council member who wrote the margin notes. Her name appears 5 times in the logbook between 1790 and 1797. She asked for the Codex 8 years after it was sealed. She asked again when she was 12. She asked at 16. She asked at 22. She asked at 34. Each time the answer was the same: restricted. She never stopped asking. She was writing in the margins of page 62 when someone decided she was a problem. Her name is still in the logbook. Her requests are still visible. The ink is faded, but the graphite impression beneath the ink, a trick mentioned in the archivist's own training manual from 1860, preserves her handwriting. She wrote in the comments section of her final request, "If the Codex is a theological treatise, why does it name the Guarani aquifer?" The archivist who received that request did not answer. He logged it. He filed it. He died in office in 1801, succeeded by his son, who maintained the same policy. The logbook continued. The Codex remained on the shelf. The vault remained sealed. The woman was never given access. She died in 1797 in Frankfurt at the age of 34. The death record lists the cause as fever. There is no fever that kills a 34-year-old woman in 1797 in Frankfurt without leaving a trace in the parish medical records. The parish medical records from 1797 are missing. The page that would contain her entry was torn out. The tear pattern matches the edge of a gloved hand, a smooth, deliberate removal, not the jagged edge of age. You are now looking at the 5th broken seal. The Codex is not the only document that has been suppressed. The suppression itself is documented. The logbook proves it. The missing page proves it. The woman whose name was removed from the lodge records proves it. The system that controls the vault, controls the catalog, controls the database, and controls the request form proves it. The vault in Frankfurt still holds the original. The catalog still describes it as a theological treatise. The logbook still records every name of every person who has ever asked to see page 44. The database still stores each request against its author's identity. The microfilm ends at page 43. The remaining pages have never been photographed. The only people who have seen them are the vault's access holders, and their names are not in any logbook. The Codex says the 7 years complete in 2027. The vault was sealed in 1749. The woman wrote her final margin note in 1796. The question is not whether the timeline is real. The question is whether you are reading this before or after the 7th year ends. The answer depends on when you saw the coordinates for the island that does not appear on any maritime registry, the vault that was neither burned nor digitized, the name that was torn from the parish records, the request that was logged, the archivist who was transferred, the woman who never stopped asking. The Codex is not a prediction. It is a receipt, and the receipt is still open.